When I got out of the hospital, I had to stay in a town a week or so, and then we moved out on the farm, and it was pretty well. They pretty well got moved in there. I think the mother kind of helps and so on. So anyway, we moved out there, and Kenny's folks, well, I talked before, lived in the basement, and we were upstairs, and it snowed a lot that year. And so Kenny's mom, she did the cooking for so on to, and then bring it up, and she didn't want me to do much until it was probably the first or second week in February. And by that time, I was getting cabin fever and ready to get outdoors and go help do chores. Well, when it snowed like this, why we'd go out and do chores, Kenny and I, and about noon or a little after, they'd come up from the basement. The uncle would bring his violin and he'd play music for us all afternoon, and we'd play pinochle. And some of those pinochle games lasted for 2 days, and there was no cheating in them, as some people accuse me of cheating. But anyhow, we did play a lot of cards, and so one day she was down in the basement and so on, and I thought, and I'd been kind of toying with the idea, I'm going to make a pie. And so I had bought the crust because I wasn't ready to try that yet. And I bought some raisins because raisin pie was one of Kenny's favorites. And while I was making this pie, I began to think back. Uh, when us four girls were freshmen, well, we must have just ate what was sent in because I can't remember doing any cooking. Same way when Mama Jean and I lived. We must have just ate what was sent in or very little cooking. Now, Betty and I, when we lived together, we lived on tea and toast, and we'd fry us an egg for breakfast, and uh, we just didn't cook. And then thinking back a little bit farther, I thought, well, I remember the time that I think I've already told you about having to cook that meal for Kenny's folks, but Grandma was on the telephone all the time with me, so we got away with that. And one that I didn't like to never live down is when I made the pork chop sandwich and left the bone in it that everybody's heard. But, that was kind of Kenny's fault too, because I was getting ready to go to school and I had my mind on something besides fixing lunch. And I can't ever remember fixing lunch for myself, so I don't know what I did. And then I thought, of all the years I can remember, we used to go over to Grandma's every Thanksgiving and every Christmas. And Grandma would roast the turkey and fix the dressing and noodles. And she and Frances could make the best angel food cakes. And Edna, we think of her potato salad. And Mother and Eula always made chocolate cake. Mother would make at least a cherry pie and a mincemeat pie. And then, of course, they brought the other stuff. But these were the main things. And Mother, not on holidays necessarily, but she could fix the best fried chicken, and I don't know what she put in it. I know she put a little bit of garlic powder in the flour and so on, and she'd make a rhubarb pie. Was really good at that. So all of this was going through my mind while I was thinking about this pie that I was going to make. Well, when I got out, Kenny's mother had some cookbooks up there, and I found a recipe for a pie. And so I fixed the filling and so on. And it'd probably been all right if I'd left it, because I put the pie in the already made crust, put it in the oven, and when it was time to come out, why, I thought, there's no top on that. So I could remember Mother beating eggs, making a meringue, and she'd beat these eggs, I knew, till they were real, real stiff. and then she'd put sugar in them, and so that's what I did. Well, something went wrong somewhere. I put it in the oven. When I put it out, it it looked pretty awful. So I thought, well, I'll scrape off the top of that meringue and maybe it'll be all right. So I scraped that off. I was going to scrape that off, but before I did, Kenny walked in. And when he saw that pie, he started laughing. And I told him, it's on the way to the trash can. And, no, 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 it'll be all right. Well, he laughed. And I told him, I said, I'll never make another raisin pie. And do you know, to this day, I've never made another raisin pie. But oh, he told me later, he said, your mom told me that you couldn't cook, but I didn't, and this is my pet peeve. I didn't believe her. He said anybody raised on a farm would know how to cook. Pet peeve number one. And anyhow, I think he ate the pie, but I didn't have any top on it or any meringue, and I never ever tasted it because I hated raisins then, and I don't like them now. So anyhow, somebody'd asked me, said, do you think a girl, and they mentioned farm, ought to know how to cook? And I said, well, first place, I can't see any difference of living in town and not knowing how to cook or in the country. And no, I don't think they need to know how to cook if they don't want to. I mean, if there's some reason they have to, why, then that's all right. But if they don't want to, I don't think they ought to have to cook. And somebody can just suffer through it. And so I had a friend, and she said, well, she said, when I was engaged, she said, my fiance wanted to know 3 things. And the first one was, can you cook? And she said, well, yeah. She said, I've been on my own for a while. I can cook. Well, what about sew? Could you sew? And she said, I made my wedding gown. Yeah, I can sew. And I don't remember for sure what the third one was, but I think it was something like can you keep house. But anyway, I guess she got the right answers for all of them. And I said, and what did you ask him what he could do? And she just kind of looked at me, well, no. She said, I never thought about it. And I said, well, you know what? To me, it sounds like he wanted a servant or a maid or something. I said, if Kenny had asked me those questions, first place, I probably wouldn't have answered. In the second place, if he did, I'd have passed that test for sure, and the rest of you wouldn't have been here, because he did never complained, but I think he had kind of a rough time. But we were saved a little bit because Mother had canned us a bushel of peaches in the summer, and I think I told you about one of the shower gifts we got was, I think, probably pretty close to a case of canned food, and they'd removed all the stickers and switched them on different cans. So when we opened a can, we didn't know what we were going to eat. It might be fruit, it might be spinach, I don't know, but it was it was awful. But I never told you, when the summer after we were freshmen, Beverly's mother had to have some kind of surgery. And so Beverly wanted me to come over and help her keep house and do whatever we needed to do. And I was there 2 weeks, and it was just like playing house. She didn't know much more than I knew. But she didn't know how to make gravy, so we could make potatoes and gravy and I think fried hamburger. And then her dad lots of times would go and bring hamburgers out from town. And they only lived about 10 miles from town. Well, neither one of us were driving yet, but we'd get to go to town 2 or 3 times a week. And Beverly was going with a fella from Edson, and he had this friend, and he'd gone with Wilma Jean for a while, so we were friends. So they'd come out and we'd play cards at night, or we went to the show a couple times. And so it was a pretty nice 2 weeks, but we'd do the washing, no ironing, but we'd do the washing. I don't know how he survived. But anyhow, then I don't know whether it was that year or whether it was the next year. Why, I didn't know this couple very well, but I did know who they were. And they wanted me to come down and work for them because something was the matter with her. And they had about a 6-month-old baby. And and Mother told them too. I said, I don't cook, but I'll come down and help keep house, and I think I can take care of the baby. I can give him his bath and so on. Well, they didn't believe me either. So I got down there, and it was time to get breakfast. And I said, well, I'll fix you tea and toast, and I can make coffee. But and maybe fry an egg or something, but that's it. And I'll give the baby a bath. And so we got along that way. Well, and when dinner time came, he said, well, what are you fixing for dinner? I said, I'm not. You are. And he said, I don't cook. I said, well, I don't know what we're going to do. Well, the two of us struggled through something. I don't know what. But anyhow, that was my my life with cooking. Well, anyhow, when Kenny's mother was up there, I wasn't the only one that didn't know things, because she was ironing one day, and she said, she said, when Betty lived here and she'd come to one of Ray's white shirts, she'd just jump in the car and drive 27 miles and take that shirt to her mother's to be ironed. And I didn't say a word. I just let her talk, because when I started teaching at Rulton, my grandma said, you're going to be really busy and you won't get home till 5 o'clock, and then you're going to have to get something for dinner. So she said, after you do your washing, you bring your ironing over. Because she said, Mrs. Murray, and this was a housekeeper that kind of lived with Grandma and helped take care of Grandpa and do everything except make bread, which Grandma did. And she said, and she could just do that ironing. Well, it didn't just last while I was teaching at Rulton. It went on for months after we moved out on the farm. And when Kenny's mom made this remark about Betty taking it to town, I thought, I'm not telling her I've got a basket full of ironing to take down to Grandma's, because we'd take it on one Sunday and we'd get what we took the Sunday before. And I know this went on for months, because we'd go to church every Sunday, and I thought, well, Mrs. Marie needs something more to do, and it makes Grandma happy, and it sure makes me happy, because, well, I did my own ironing, but church I never ironed, because, well, us girls would do our own ironing, but Mother would always take care of Dad's, and maybe we'd do some of Mother's ironing or Larry Bill's little things, but shirts, no. She did that. And then talking about living in the storm and so on. Why, that winter, like I say, it was a bad winter, and it snowed a lot. And that was one of the first things. If there was a blizzard or something, the roads were closed. Well, Kenny and his dad had to go to town for something right away. And I think it was just to see if they could get out, or maybe go to town to get some cigarettes or something. I don't know. But they'd break out to the road, and then when they'd get down to the main highway, there was no problem. This road was always there. Well, Kenny had bought when he'd been in Denver, he'd bought some kind of an aviation suit. It was leather pants. They were sheepskin lined, and they were pretty heavy, but they were warm. Well, one of the cows had a baby calf, and it was outside of the corral and down into the pasture a little ways. And he saw this calf down there, and he told me, he said, I've got to go down and get that baby calf or it'll freeze to death. And so he went in and put on that aviator suit, and he walked down there. And it was quite a long walk through part of the pasture and through part of the corral. And the mother followed him, and when she got in there, there's a pen outside the barn, and so he shut that gate so she couldn't get back out. and he carried that baby calf in the house. And his mom had gone down and got a old quilt or blanket or something, and they wrapped this baby calf in it. And all during the day, some of us would go and rub this calf. Well, towards evening, the little calf was ready to get up, and so Kenny carried it back out, and the mother, Kenny's dad said, the mother may not have anything to do with it since so many of us have touched it. This may be a bottle calf. Well, the mother did take it, but when Kenny got in, I asked him, I said, "Are you freezing too?" And he said, "No, I'm sweating." Well, he had little icicles from his eyelashes and his eyes, and I said, "You may be sweating inside that suit, but you've got icicles all over." But I had seen them carry calves in the house before because Dad had done this when a little calf was in danger. They just carry it in the house and take care of it.
Shoo fly by, an apple bandari makes your eyes light up. Your tummy saying howdy. Shoo fly by, an apple bandari. I never get enough of that wonderful stuff.